Before I begin, today my wife took the time out of her day to rearrange my background. You're going to see my artwork is hanging differently. She put up some shelves and she basically cleaned up my entire background. So what you're seeing behind me is my new background. So I wanted to say that before I start. Welcome to my channel. This is JC Rock and Metal Reviews. My name is John, and today I have a new ranking video. It is for the band UFO, and I will be doing the years between 1970 and 1980. So before I begin, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. I do rock and metal reviews, rankings, and more. So before I begin, the reason I'm doing this video was part of my 300 subscriber contest, and part of the prize was that I would do a ranking video of the band that was shown by the winner, and the winner was Cosmic Vinyl. So if you don't know Cosmic Vinyl, please check out his channel. It's very entertaining. He plays music. He has a lot of cool like video effects and really good like video editing style. So I really like it. It's a very entertaining channel. I will put a link of it in my video description. So the band UFO, they have 22 albums, and I didn't really feel I could pull off a ranking that big because I don't really know the band that well. It's not something like Scorpions or Alice Cooper where I've done the entire discography. This is a band I didn't know that well, so I decided to do a 10-year period from 1970 to 1980, and that is really the most popular period anyway. So I'm not going to waste any more time. Let me get right Coming in at number 8 is No Place to Run, and this was released in 1980. This is their 8th album, the first to feature Paul Chapman, who replaced Michael Schenker on guitar. And I felt that this album was very commercial. They moved into a more radio-friendly arena rock style, and it was a big change from their other albums. This album was produced by George Martin, who was known for his work with the Beatles. And they released a few singles. One was called Letting Go, and it's a rocker, it's a straightforward rock and roll song, very upbeat and radio-friendly. It was catchy. And another single they released was called Youngblood, and that was another straightforward rock and roll song. And that it was like a little more commercial, and the album does have a very 70s rock feel. So it was Coming in at number 7 is Obsession, and this is the last album with Michael Schenker on guitar. And I know many people like this album a lot, but it was still kind of commercial. It did have an arena rock sound. The album was released in 1978. One of the songs released as a single was called Only You Can Rock Me, and I really like that song a lot. It reminds me of like early Kiss, but with like keyboards, if you can just imagine that. Another single was called Born to Lose, and this song was very like a radio-friendly ballad, and it's like one of those types of ballads that you hear on the radio, you know, like back then in the 70s. But all in all, this album, you know, wasn't really too memorable. That's why I have it at number 7. Coming in at number 6 is No Heavy Petting, and this might be controversial because I have it kind of low, but the other albums are a lot better. This album has Michael Schenker on guitar and has some very good songs on it. I really like the song called Martian Landscape. It's very mellow, it's psychedelic. Reminds me of like Pink Floyd in the intro, but this is a really good classic rock song, has some acoustic guitars, and it's basically straightforward 70s rock and roll. Another single that was released is called Can You Roll Her, and that was more of like a hard rocker. And this album in general has some pretty good like guitar work, so it is like a pretty decent album. Coming in at number 5 is Lights Out. This was released in 1977. And out of all the albums, this one has one of the songs that's very memorable called Lights Out. This is another straightforward 70s hard rock album. The lead single was called Too Hot to Handle, and this opens with a riff, which again sounds like classic Kiss. This is a really good arena rock song. It's very radio friendly, very catchy. Another single released was called Alone Again, and probably one of the best songs on the album. Almost reminds me of like an old Beatles song. It's catchy, has like a lot of like orchestral arrangements and things like that. And like I said, probably the best song on the album. Coming in at number 4 is Force It. This was released in 1975, and their first album to introduce keyboards, and This is basically a hard rock or progressive rock album. Many feel it was influential for heavy metal. One of the singles is called Shoot Shoot. It's very straightforward rock and roll song. Has a really nice guitar riff, a really nice bass. Another single that was released off this album is called High Flyer. That is an acoustic ballad. It was very melodic and had a really nice sound to it. So it was just like a typical classic 1970s ballad. This is a very good album. All the songs are good. So this one I enjoyed a lot. Coming in at number 3 is UFO 2, Flying 1 Hour of Space Rock. And that is basically what it is. So I don't know if it's true, but I feel that like Rush was influenced when they created 2112, because I hear a lot of similarities like from this album. And this album came out, I think, like 4 or 5 years before that. But especially the song The Coming of Prince Kajuku. It reminds me of like the first side of 2112. And like I said, it's 1 hour of space rock. They have a 26-minute song, which was kind of unheard of at that time. I don't think there were any rock bands putting out songs that long in 1971. And this album has a sound similar to the first one, which I will talk about in a minute. But this is just straightforward psychedelic rock. This is a really good album. Coming in at number 2 is UFO One, and this is their debut album released in 1970. And it is psychedelic rock, and they call it space rock, and it has a sound unlike any other albums. So the lineup for this album was Phil Mogg on vocals, Mick Bolton on guitar, Pete Way on bass, and Andy Parker on drums. Michael Schenker was not in the band as of yet. He would be playing with the Scorpions around this time. One of the singles was called Shake About It. Has a really good groove to it. You can hear a nice bass sound, really nice lead guitar. It has really like a 60s rock vibe. And they released another single called Melinda, which was an anti-war song, and it was a cover that was recorded by like multiple singers, most notably Harry Belafonte. This one album I really like a lot. It has a completely different sound than the other ones, but this is an awesome album. But it's not number 1. My number 1 is Phenomenon, released in 1974. This is the first album with Michael Schenker. Right after he left the Scorpions and he joined the band UFO. And this was like a transitional album. They moved from their space rock into a more like hard rock sound. And I like it because it has like the best of both worlds. It has like the space rock and it has like that like hard rock, almost proto-metal sound. One of the most famous songs is called Doctor Doctor, and that was covered by Iron Maiden, and rightfully so, because this song sounds like what Iron Maiden would have sounded like if they had put out albums in the early 70s. That's kind of how I would describe it. Another great song is called Rock Bottom. It's straightforward hard rock and one of their best and most well-known. My favorite deep cut is called Queen of the Deep, and that one has a really nice groove. And that is it. Let me know what you thought of my ranking of the UFO albums. Let me know what are your favorites from this particular era of the band. Please subscribe to Cosmic Vinyl and check out the in-video links. The weekend's coming up, some new releases, and not a lot, but there are a few pretty good ones. I have a few more anniversaries coming up this weekend or early in the week. So I'll see you in the next one.